Welcome to this video, which I hope will help students in writing their first longer Java programs. I have an assignment right here in front of you that deals with a second assignment in Chapter 2 where you're actually writing programs, and I'm asking for very specific information. Please note that if you're sort of a, what I call monkey see, monkey do, I'm not going to just give you everything and you watch and imitate it. You have to do the thought process, but I'm hoping I can guide you through some of this and make your delivery of the program a little bit faster in computing it and writing it. And if you have difficulties with this, of course, you need to find a buddy online or contact me some way. Don't wait until the last minute and play the game that some students will play, such as, well, I didn't know the speed limit was 60 and you're giving me a ticket, or I don't understand, and they leave it at that. A lot of times I don't understand sometimes means I slacked off, I didn't read the book, I didn't ask for help, and oops, my program is due tonight. You have to take that responsibility, and I want to do that little sermon right up front. Having said this now, let me look at the first program with you, and I'll read it out loud because I want to point out some key phrases. Use your Java software. Now, right off the bat, that means you're not going to type it in a Word document or a PDF file, because Word, PDF, WordPerfect, all those flavors of software packages or applications packages have a tendency to want to capitalize because they think you're writing a paper for like an English or history or psychology or sociology class. And that's not what we're doing here. We're doing computer programming. Programming is not changing the settings on your cell phone. You're actually writing code. And I hope people have understood this right off the bat before they take a programming class. You're going to use the Java software that you should have installed already. You can't wait until December to install software and then ask for a miracle. You need to take ownership of your education. Use your Java software. I happen to use Dr. Java because I find that's very friendly to use, and I'll use this during the explanation. So you have to use your Java software, and I can tell whether or not you've used it. It's very easy for a programmer with my experience to know that, so please understand up front. And there's a phrase that says, ask the user to input any 4 grades from the keyboard. So I'm looking for a very specific kind of input. You don't get to rig it by putting in your favorite grades, calculating the average on your calculator, and then writing the answer in your program. It's got to work for any grades that I put in there, and I will test it out. So it's asking for grades. Declare a variable, which you have to do in programming, to store the average based on any 4 test grades that are typed in. So don't you pick 80, 80, 90, 90, and say, hey, the average is 85, and print that out. You have to make it work for any program, and that's where this input statement will help out. The program should calculate the average. There you go. Print out each test grade, and I should have said grade there instead of grade. Sorry about that. I'll go ahead and change that now. And then print out the test average. The output should be in sentence form, meaning right here, I don't want it to say 98, 35, 24, 100, and then just have an average. I want to have some kind of sentence there, because, and part of this is being able to practice good programming skills and learn some of the grammar, or what we call syntax, in writing this program. So I want you to make sure that you follow directions carefully, and I'll give you a grading rubric to be sure. And again, your program must work for any 4 test grades that are entered in there. Now, I'm not trying to blow up your program, but I want to make sure that you're not rigging it. And again, you want to send a file to me that ends in something called .java. Let me scoot up here and make sure you see this in case the video is crazy, because people will try to send this all kinds of ways, and I want to make sure that you're using your Java software, because that's what part of this course is all about. So let's break this down into parts again, and I'm going to go back and forth in using this screen because I want to make sure it's totally clear to you. So you want to use the Java software, so I want to get input any 4 test grades from the keyboard. Declare a variable for average. Now, part of this you can't take too ridiculously literally. I want to make sure all these components are in your program, and there are many ways to write one. This is almost like a word problem in math, which some people basically they get real tense about. I teach math also, so I understand the anxieties that are characteristic of a lot of our CCC students. Some are like, bring it on, and others are absolutely frightened. But that's part of what this course is about. It's about logic. You want to declare the variable for the average, calculate average, I'm going to look at all the things that are going on here. Calculate the average, print each test grade. Now, even though you're seeing it on the screen, that doesn't count as printout. That's just when you're typing it in from the keyboard. I want it in sentence form. And print test average. And you got to be careful about that in Java also, because if you've done your sheet on arithmetic, Java will cut off the decimal automatically. And what if that were the borderline between you making a B or an A, or a B and a C? A lot of people would be upset about that. So you're going to make sure it's okay. And I'm going to put in sentence form right here. So we're looking for these goals. And I'm just phrasing this. This is not a perfect video, and I don't apologize for that. So that's what we're after. Along with this, you might want to look at something that I have for you with this attachment with your assignments that's called a guide to writing your first program. Some people need a breakdown of what's here. Now, I don't have this in very strong format as far as the font is for this particular video, but at least you'll know what it is. So it shows you the shell, which is with every program that you'll write initially. And then I have some guidelines for whatever needs to be put in there. And I hope this will help you out. So I would say refer to this. Don't just depend on my video as your life support system only, but be sure that you're looking at this guide that may help you out. This is the shell. If it says print out something, then here's your sentence for printing out. If it were to say declare a string variable, there's the way you do it. If it says store value in memory, here's the way you do it. If it says input something from the keyboard, I've given you some phrases for that right in here in the little boxes. For numbers with decimals, without decimals, for strings, for characters. If you're getting input from a dialog box, which we'll do in another video, you have that information. So refer to this as you need to as you go along. And also, as I said, I should have said, I will say in the final handout, for this particular program, you might want to refer to pages 84 through 91 in the book to help you out. Because a lot of people are very scared with their first program, and I encourage you, if you're having difficulty, don't wait and wait and wait and wait until it's too late. Get some help immediately. I've had people come to my office and they found that it makes a huge difference if they just drop by. If you're geographically too far away or unable to do this, I can make a video, or we can have a conference over the phone, or I can capture your screen. There are a lot of things we can do, but again, you have to take ownership of your education, as I've said in the course syllabus. So here we go. I'm going to try, I'm not going to promise any miracles here, I'm going to try to get this to where I can look at multiple screens at the same time. Now, sometimes Windows 7 wants to help me out, and I don't need its help. I'm going to use Dr. Java. I have a very busy desktop screen right now because I'm doing a lot of grading for 7 classes. 4 of my classes, different preps, are online. So I'm going to go into Dr. Java, which is the one I like. It's free. I like no cost because people don't have jobs, people don't have money, and we like free even if we do have financial blessings right now. And I'm going to try, like I say, I'm going to try to move this around to where I can make this a little bit easier for you to see everything. It's not perfect. All right, the first thing we have to do when we're using Java, there are a lot of special collections of information that we can use that are called classes. It's like, right now, why do a lot of heavy arithmetic on paper when we've got a calculator? We've got a tool we can use, so let's use the calculator. Why walk to Charlotte, which would not be smart, from Shelby, when we have a car? Let's use the invention that's given to us. In Java, we have some items called classes that help make programming easier, so why not use those? Why not use the apps on our phone? Why not use the program software and the what we call classes that go with it to make our life easier? And with Java, if you're looking in your textbook, specifically for this keyboard input, we have a statement on page 87 that is called an import statement. It's just typed in exactly as you see at the top of page 7. Import Java, period, utility, period, scanner. Don't worry about whether a lot of this makes sense right now or not. You'll be fine. I've taught this for many years, and you will get used to it. So that's the first thing you'll want to write on here is, I'm not sure if you can see this, but you're going to have an import statement to open up the program. And again, as I said in the guidelines, if you look at the guide, and I'll see if I still have that open, I want to use the shell for every one of my programs. So I want to make sure I have public class and this guy right here. I'm going to go ahead and hope this works out. I'm going to copy and paste this just in the interest of time on this particular video and see if it works. And you're going to see all my Windows 8 glory coming up there. And hopefully it's going to work. I've got to name this particular this particular Java program, and you can call it 1, you can call it number 1. The rules for naming a program are the same as for variables. And there are all kinds of funky things you can do, but I make it simple and tell my students use alphabet, use digits 0 through 9, use the underline key. Do not use spaces. So you could call this program 1 as long as you don't put spaces there. Or you can call it something descriptive. Now I use capital letters to separate so it looks like 2 words rolled into one. It's easier to read. And this is the shell of your program right here. So pause the video if you need to. And everything you'll be writing in your code will go between these 2 inside sets of braces. The one after public class program 1 is a brace that opens to the right. It's called a left brace. And the one that opens the other way is called a right brace. People with vision issues and people that just forget sometimes will put 2 braces that are identical looking, and you have to be careful about that. Now the body of your program will go inside this guy that's called public static void main. Do not worry about the meanings of all these words right now. Alright, it says to ask the user to input any 4 test grades from the keyboard. So what you have to do is write something called a prompt, and they've got examples of this, as I said, through pages 84, 85, 86, 87 through there. What we have to do is create something called an object, and like I say, I'm going to start you with this to help you through it. We first of all want to declare some variables that we need. Well, I'm going to need 4 test grades, and I'm going to need a variable for average right here. So I'm going to do that by going, and I'm going to make 4 variables. Now, you can decide for the variables to make life easier. They can either be integer or they can be double. Double simply means that you can allow a decimal value there. Integer means it's strictly got to be a number without a decimal. I'm going to make this simple now, and you can name these any way you want to. I'll call this first one grade 1. Now again, notice there's no space after it. And you can do the same thing if you want to do grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. Now, I'm not doing all of them, so if you do this exactly like the video, you're not going to have a perfect program because I'm not doing the whole program for you. But I'll give you some starting tips for it. So you'll declare your grades, and because the average is going to be probably a decimal value, I would prefer using the word double right there. Now, Java is very, very picky about capital and lowercase letters. It's very picky about spacing. It's very picky about these semicolons. So that's a way to declare your variables. Now to get the information into the keyboard, we have to use something called a scanner class, and I'm just going to follow what the book does because it works very well. You can just copy this literally. Scanner keyboard equals new, and then I'll explain this later on in the semester when a better time comes that you'll understand it. Just type this sentence literally. This is just like think of it as a doctor's office waiting room. It's just a place to hold patients until the doctor wants to see them. It's a place to hold the grades individually until the computer needs to use them. So I have something called keyboard right here. And basically to input each grade, I just type in a statement that prints stuff, and I'm going to say, what is the first test grade? And you make this, it doesn't have to be super precise. But notice the syntax. Again, I have to assume that you've been practicing with the book, and I'm hoping that you've been reading or looking at the programs. If you try to be completely a hunter in this class where you just look at answers and you never read anything, you just do a lot of hunting, you'll have trouble with this course. So I'm asking the user for the first test grade. And to get that test grade, what I do from the keyboard is I use one of the variable names. In this case, I'll use grade 1 equals, and what you write down here, and again, use your guide that I had for you in this handout, and it says, and it practically gives you everything. If you want to input a value from the keyboard for numbers without decimals, I've got the import statement. You only have to have it once. And I just have a variable name, which I called grade 1, and then I use something called a scanner statement, and then I print this out. So let me go back at this again. I write grade 1 equals, and what I always write here is keyboard dot next int. Now watch the capitalization in the parentheses right here. Java is extremely picky about this stuff, and that will annoy a lot of you when you start compiling your program and seeing the mistakes that are made. Alright, that's the first test grade. Alright, to get the second test grade, I don't have to declare scanner again. Again, think of it as the waiting room. The keyboard variable, if you want to call it that, technically it's called an object, will hold this first grade. And let's say the first grade was like a 90. Alright, the keyboard would have a 90. And once that keyboard grade has been input into grade 1, once it's in the grade 1 room in the doctor's office, not the big waiting room, then it's taken care of. Now what I can do is I can type another statement, and you can copy and paste if you want to, as long as you're careful with it, or you can type it like I'm doing. I can say, what is the second test grade? And I do exactly the same thing as I did before. I'll call it grade 2 because I declared it up here as grade 2. So grade 2 will contain this information. Again, the same statement, keyboard.nextInt. And for right now, just in hopes of being clear with you, it's always hard to explain this when you're not face-to-face with a class where they can ask a lot of questions. And I'm trying to pull this up here for you and get this going. Let's just say this is the complete Java program right here. I'll stop at this point. I will go to the Tools menu, and this is for Dr. Java. Yours may be different. And well, actually, I'd actually go to File and choose Save As, and just remember where you saved it. The key thing you have to remember about Java is you must absolutely name your program exactly the same name as is the name of the public class. In other words, mine is called Program1 with no space there. I am required to use that name for Save As. I can't switch them around. So I've got to call it Program1. Make sure you know where it's stored. You will not have a folder called Java Works from Sys because that's not your name. And when you save this, it will store that program for you. And you can go ahead and click Save. You can also, when you do something called Compile It, check for mistakes, like checking a paper for mistakes, you can do Tools, or go under the word Tools, and in that menu choose Compile Current Document. It will save it for you automatically. It's going to ask me to save it, so you won't get away with not saving it. And it will see if it's running properly. Now, fortunately for me, it happens that, and I've got 3 warnings right here. Warnings are not usually a bad thing right here. I think it'll still run, but I just wanted to give you the mechanics of it. So I'm going to run the document. And what it will do, you may not be able to see this at the bottom, but hopefully you can. It will say, what is the first test grade? And I type that in and hit enter. What is the second test grade? And that's all it's doing right now. So I've got a way to enter my test grade. So again, recalling what I've done at the moment, I've asked for test grades from the keyboard. I didn't ask for 4 of them. That's up to you. You can do the rest of them. I declared a variable called average. It should calculate the average, print out each test grade. Now I'm going to do a little bit of that for you to help you out. Alright, I've got the word average declared up here. There's the word average right there. So I'm going to write the word average. This is something called an assignment statement. Now how do I compute an average? What I have to do is add them up and divide, right? Alright? Now, if I were doing 2 test grades, like in this case, I'm going to put grade 1 plus grade 2 divided by, and I'll let you rig this one. If there are 4 test grades, it's okay to divide it by 4. Now, you have to be careful in Java about a couple of things with this. It's very tricky. Let's suppose that my grades were 90 and, well, I'll say 90 plus, and I would divide by 2 in my case instead of 4, sorry, because I've only have 2 grades. And I'll end it with a semicolon. Let's suppose my grades were 90 and 87. Well, if I did it like this, what Java would do is it would start out, it would do the math, it would do the arithmetic incorrectly. So if you get a funky number, you'll know what happened. The computer always divides first. So if you did this in this form, it would divide 87 by 2, and you get like 43 and a half, and add 90 to it. So you're going to have this really high average, like 130 something. So you want to make sure that the computer adds the numbers first before it divides. And that's the reason I had to put parentheses not quotes, not brackets. They're the little round parentheses, the shift of the 9, the shift of the 0. So you force the computer to add them first before it divides. The other thing that will happen in Java that you have to understand, in division with Java, if one of these numbers is not, sorry about the green, if none of these numbers have a decimal place, it will automatically cut off any decimal. It will not round it off. So what you have to do is to make sure that you put a decimal place in one of the numbers. So I do 2.0 just to be safe. It's a little bit trickier than you do in a math class. Now again, in your particular program, you are dealing with 4 grades. So again, don't just imitate my program literally because you'll have some mistakes in it. I'm asking for 4 grades, but I'm giving you enough of a clue to help you out. Now if you want to print some of this stuff out, you use a sentence called system.out.println. Now again, if this confuses you, you need to read or you need to go to my guide sheet that says when you are printing something out, let me see it right here. If you want to print out something, you use system.out.println. And I'm giving you as much as I can, but you have to do some of the work. And if I wanted to print this out in sentence form, I would, if I wanted it, for instance, to say, let's say I wanted it to say, your first grade is 97. Now, one thing you don't want to do, you do not want to put the whole thing in quotes and say your first grade is 97, because that would be rigging the program, because I want it to work. What if I type in a 73 when I get your paper, when I get your assignment? If I type in 73 and it says my first grade is 97, it's like, no, it's not, it's 73. So it's going to work for any number. So what you have to do is make it print out not the number, but the variable, which in your case is called grade 1. Now you want to be careful. If you put this all in quotes, it's going to print your first grade is grade 1. So you want the grade 1 not to be in quotes because you want that to take the variable value that you input earlier. So what I do is I put the sentence in quotation marks, your first grade is, because I want that to literally print out. And Java, in order to separate quoted information called a literal from variable information, you put a plus sign to separate it. It's not addition like we think of in math, but it's called concatenation. You're basically connecting, that's what concatenate means, you're connecting the quoted information with the variables. Anytime you switch over from numbers or variables to sentence phrases, you want to separate those quotes right there. So I'll scoot this on over, and I hope you can see this on the video. And I'll actually run this in just a minute and let you see it. You would put your first grade is grade 1. So what will happen here is it would print out whatever grade you put in right there. You would do the same thing with average. You could say your final score is, and then put the word average. I'll run this part again. It's already been saved, so I can compile it. It'll save it again. And then when I run it, you may get a couple of warnings. That's okay. And it will ask me for the first grade. I'm not sure if you can see this at the bottom of the screen or not. I surely hope you can. And it will print out the sentence, your first grade is 78. I hope this gives you a little bit of an idea of how this is done. Now again, I emphasize this is not a complete program. This is just a partial introduction to the program to help you out. Now, once you have saved this, what you do is you go to Blackboard. Now this is a file, and the name that I called it at the very top of the screen was the name Program 1. So when you have this saved on your computer, the name of the file, you're going to actually see a couple of items here. Now, I'll see if I can write this. I'm not sure if it will let me or not. You're going to see a couple of programs when you save it. You're going to see one that's called program1.java. You might see one possibly that says, and I'm doing this on 2 lines because of my space, program1.class. What you want to send to me is that one right there, program1.java. That's the one you want to send to Blackboard. If you make mistakes in sending stuff, I'll certainly give you second and third chances to get it right. But you need to get on this early, folks. Don't wait till the last minute. Don't wait late in the semester and ask for miracles that I jokingly say are only in the Old and New Testaments. You have to basically work with me on this. It's your responsibility. You want to send me the program1.java file. So when I'm going into Blackboard to send this, and I'll just use this as a pretend example. I've got this set up right here. What you would do and I've got this on the student. Let me go on the student end real fast, and thank you for being patient as I'm composing this video a little bit as I go along. Let's say I go in as a student, and I'm going to do something totally pretend right here. Let's just say I'm going to go in here, and I'm submitting it absolutely in the wrong place. So let's just pretend that I'm submitting this here. What I would do is I would go to, got the wrong one here, I apologize. I'm just finding an empty spot where I can send something. So this is not the right place. Again, do not take this literally. I just want to find a place where I can send it to you. And I may not find that. I don't want you to misunderstand anything here and send it in the wrong place. So don't take this, again, don't take this literally. You would click Browse My Computer, and you would look for the file that said Program 1, and you got to be careful right here. Be very careful. You do not want to send that one. Do not send that one. That little squiggly line will do nothing for me. Do not send the one called Class. You want the one that says Program 1, and over here on the right it says Java File. Be very, very, very careful with what you send to me. I'm not saying this to scare you, but I want you to make it correct. And once you do this enough times, it will get easier, I promise. And that's the one that you would send to me. I hope this gives you some basic assistance with your first Java programs that are of any length, and I'm going to do a second video for the other exercise. If you have concerns, communicate with me early and often.